In the last couple of videos, I have mentioned that the situation between England and Spain starts to deteriorate, particularly under the reign of Elizabeth I. So let's talk about this deterioration. Uh, English privateers are going to plunder much of the new Spanish New World. And I use the word privateer, so we need to make sure we understand the term. There's a difference between a pirate and a privateer. A pirate is somebody who sails under their own flag, and they go and they attack attack other nations, possessions, ships, people. I mean, think about, it's not very hard to understand what a pirate is. A privateer, however, is someone that does exactly what a pirate does, but the difference is that he sails under the flag of a specific nation. So, for example, if you remember the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, at one point Johnny Depp's character is offered letters of marque, which are basically basically just saying that this man, he's going to act like a pirate, but he's sailing under the protection of the English flag. That's a privateer. So the difference, the main difference between the two men is how you can treat them if you catch them. Going back to our Pirates of the Caribbean example, if we remember seeing the very first scenes of Johnny Depp's character in the very first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, he saves the governor's daughter, and as soon as they discover that he's a pirate, what does the governor say? Hang him. And that's because you can hang a pirate like that. Summary execution. You don't need to have a trial or anything like that. They are terrorists. They are not afforded any sort of protection under the rules of war. A privateer, however, is a regular sailor in a country's navy, and there are certain rules that you have to live by in terms of how to treat a privateer. You can catch them and keep them as prisoners of war, but they are afforded by that privateer status. They are afforded the protections of the international laws of war governing the treatment of prisoners of war. So, from the English perspective, these privateers are attacking Spanish New World possessions. From the Spanish perspective, these guys are nothing but pirates acting on the orders of Elizabeth I, but they're certainly not privateers. But nonetheless, one of the most famous privateers of the English was Francis Drake, and he's mainly famous because he's the one that goes around the world, the first Englishman to go around the world and actually survive. Remember, Ferdinand Magellan actually dies in the Philippines. He doesn't complete his journey. But nonetheless, Drake attacks and plunders the treasure fleets that are coming out of the New World. Spain, predictably, sends out the treasure fleets twice a year, and Drake attacks them and plunders much of the booty and brings it back to England. So Philip II of Spain is going to be very angered by this. And how do you stop a rival country that's also a monarchy from attacking you? Well, you do it either through diplomacy or open war. So Philip II tries diplomacy. He goes and he is going to suggest that he and Elizabeth actually get married, kind of like a what's mine is yours and what yours is mine type of situation. Well, as you know, that really doesn't work out too well, because one of Elizabeth's nicknames, of course, is the Virgin Queen, meaning she never got married. So we know that marriage proposal went out the window pretty quickly. So now Philip has another issue, they're going to therefore have his only option left, and that, of course, is going to be open war. So however, he can't just go to war because privateers are attacking his ships. He needs a better reason and he also wants a better reason in order to convince much of Christendom to fight against Elizabeth. And unfortunately, Elizabeth falls for it. You see, one of the things that before 1588, all of this, the Spanish Armada that we're talking about happens in 1588. Elizabeth, before 1588, so her first 30 years on the throne, it sounds stable, but it really isn't. Her biggest threat is the Queen of Scots, who's under house arrest, and her name was Mary Stuart. And she has a legitimate claim to the throne, and also she's Catholic. So a lot of English Catholics look to her as the true Queen of England. Well, there's going to be a plot against Elizabeth, in which Mary, Queen of Scots, is going to be a part of. And basically, what will happen is that they're going to intercept Mary Queen of Scots letters and correspondence, and in there is an order to basically start a plot to assassinate the Queen, assassinate Queen Elizabeth I, and it's got her signature on it. That's clear, clearly evidence that she's part of this conspiracy, and so she's brought up on treason charges. And Elizabeth has a big decision to make. It's a very big quandary. Do you kill her and risk the wrath of the English Catholics, probably even the King of Spain, or do you let her go? Do you leave her alone and basically endanger the rule of law? It was like, well, if she can openly rebel against Elizabeth, then who else can? Why are you going to leave her alone? But nonetheless, Mary Queen of Scots is going to be found guilty and sentenced to death. And so when she goes to the scaffold, when she goes to the chopping block to get her head chopped off, she's wearing this black robe, but as soon as she's about to get ready to be executed, she removes it, and it's this blood red dress. And what does that mean? In the Catholic Church, red means martyrdom. You see that particularly when it comes, on Good Friday, they'll dress in red. And so she is making a specific statement. She's saying, I'm not being executed because I was treasonous against the Queen. I'm also being executed because I'm a Catholic threat to the Queen. And so she's ultimately executed. The story is that it took a couple of swipes at her neck to cut it off, but nonetheless, she's going to be executed. That is the cause for war that Philip has been wanting to find, and so Elizabeth pretty much falls into that trap of angering Philip to the point of open war. So what does Philip do? He sends a massive a massive navy called the Spanish Armada. Let me give you the numbers right now. 131 ships are going to sail from Spain to go and teach Elizabeth a lesson. The idea is going to be that these 131 ships, along with 10,000 men, are going to sail right to the area between in the English Channel, what we call the Pas de Calais. It's that little tiny spit. It looks like on a map. It looks like France and England, like this far apart. They stop there, and the idea was they're going to grab an army there, sail it across the English Channel, march it against the smaller English army, and capture Elizabeth, put a Catholic on the throne. That's the plan. Well, the Spanish Armada is going to launch in, I believe, June of 1588, and it's going to encounter basically an English navy that's more of a nuisance. The English navy knows it cannot defeat the Spanish Armada as long as the Armada is intact. They need to break it up. Well, during this time period, we have wooden ships, and one day, as these ships were basically parked in the Pas de Calais, the English noticed that the wind was favoring the English. It was blowing from east to west, west to east. And so basically any ships that are sailing towards the Spanish Armada, the Spanish Armada can't move around it because the wind does not favor them. So what do the English do? They set fire to some of their ships and they sail it into the Spanish Armada. Well, it has the necessary effect. It breaks apart the Armada. The Armada is not destroyed by fire ships. What is most important is that it's broken up, and its organization and its cohesion is now gone. And what it's forced to do now is sail north. It sails north all the way around Scotland into the North Sea, and even all the way around Ireland before it reaches back to Spain. Well, along the way, the Armada is going to encounter the remnants of what we call the Little Ice Age, a time period where the Earth seemed to cool and there were more icebergs in the ocean, and therefore the Spanish Armada runs into these icebergs and sinks to the point that by the time they get back, and I believe in August of 1588, half of the ships that sail are destroyed, and of the 10,000 soldiers that left Spain with the Spanish Armada, only 3,500 return. This represents what I call the rise of England and the fall of Spain. England, as a result of this battle, is going to be stable. It's going to be the biggest power on the block when it comes to